things that you want on your CV are obviously your contact details, but only your cell phone number and your email address. Nobody, I promise you, nobody cares where you live. Okay? And in fact, in this day and age, I don't want you to tell anybody where you live, because there's a very good chance your CV ends up in the hands of somebody dodgy, and they might want to use that information against you. Nobody, no, don't frown. This has happened. Oh, okay, sorry. Please do not put your ID number on your CV. It's another opportunity for people to steal your information. And you really don't know where your CV ends up, okay? Unless the advert specifically calls for your CV and it's from a legitimate company, for your ID number on your CV, make sure it's a legitimate company, otherwise do not put your ID number on your CV, okay? You want to put a professional photograph, a summary of your profile and your objectives. So your summary is really going to be about the key highlights of your career to date. And your career to date is really being a student. Maybe with some intern and VAC work experience, right? Anybody here had a permanent job? You? Okay. Cool. So you're going to put that on. Okay? You have to do your spell check and grammar check. Please, if you're not helping each other read each other's CVs, you're not being a good friend. You cannot check all these things for yourself. Your eye starts to gloss over stuff. Okay? Reverse chronology is the most important. Why? Because I want to know what you've done most recently. I don't care, very shortly, where you matriculated from or when. I care what you've most recently studied, and I care what you've most recently done in terms of work experience, volunteer work, leadership positions, etc. Okay? So tell me the most recent first. And as you progress in your career, continue to tell me the most recent first. Because everything has a half-life. What I studied when I was your age has absolutely no bearing on my career anymore. And in fact, the work experience that I had for 15 years has helped me get to where I am, but it really doesn't count for a hell of a lot on my CV anymore. My last 10 years is my most critical stuff. Okay. You want to put your relevant achievements and skills. And at your level, I would say that pretty much everything that you've achieved and any skills that you've got are relevant. But you can organize them in a way where you prioritize what's most relevant to that particular position up at the top. Okay? So, on your CV, I want you to get a sense that your CV needs to be dynamic. Please don't develop one generic CV and that's the same CV that you send to every single job that you apply for. Because then you're going to miss the opportunity, firstly, to connect on keywords, and secondly, to reorganize information that's going to be most critical for that specific position. And that advice holds throughout your career, okay? Because you're going to get to a point at some time where maybe you change careers. And what you did in one job isn't necessarily relevant to the next job, but there are elements or skills that you've picked up that can be transferable. So for instance, I'm helping somebody at the moment who is I think he's a rock mechanic, and he's got 10 years of rock mechanic experience, but he's doing an MBA at the moment and he wants to transition into a business position. And he's applying to banks and to investment companies to start doing more due diligence work for them and risk assessments and get involved in the financial side of the job. And his CV right now looks like he would be perfect to get another level up as a rock mechanic. But there are a whole bunch of things that he's done as a rock mechanic that are relevant to the work that he wants to move into, but we need to change the way that we've worded it. And we need to re-explain why it's relevant. So his CV, when we're finished with it, is going to look like somebody who is appropriate for a job in the business world, not deep down in a mine. Okay? And that's because we're tweaking the words very carefully and we're rearranging the important information and we're changing how we express things that he's done. So for instance, he's been involved in developing budgets and managing teams and dealing with risk, but it's all been focused around his specific technical experience. And you're going to go through this at some point in time, and even right now, while you are open to any job that's available, you're going to be applying for different types of things. So make sure that your CV speaks to the specific jobs that you're applying for. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. If you're going to include your hobbies, yes?
So what about when you apply maybe for some scholarship or does that actually exclude your work experience?
No, definitely not. Look, if you are working at the moment and you're earning a salary, you might find it difficult to get scholarship or a bursary because you've already got some form of income. But if you've had work experience and you're not earning anything right now, you should absolutely put that in. Tell me why you think you should put that in. If I'm going to invest money in you and your future, why would I do that?
Because maybe you have some experience in working.
So I'm going to invest my money in somebody who can demonstrate that that's a good investment and that they have already been able to prove that they take responsibility for themselves. They have been recognized by other people as being able to take responsibility. They have already succeeded in certain things. Because that immediately says to me, this is somebody who is probably very likely to get through this degree and continue and start a career, and at some point my return on investment is knowing that I've contributed to building the skill base and the economy and the next level kind of future leaders in our country. Okay? I'm less likely to invest my money in somebody who hasn't yet proven that they have that potential. Okay? So you see a lot of bursaries and scholarships going to first year students who never finish first year. A lot of companies have now taken policies that they only give bursaries to second year students. But if you can make it through first year, you're probably going to get to the end. If you can't make it through first year, you're probably not going to be a worthwhile investment. Okay? It's an investment decision. That's what a bursary is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you can disagree with me. I'm very happy for you to disagree. Okay? Okay, so if you're going to include your hobbies, yes?
I just want to ask something on this thing that behind the skills.
Yes.
Evidence.
Yes.
Like what should you put in there?
Okay, so tell me one of your skills.
I did exploration logging, RC logging, QAQC,
Okay?
all other things.
Okay, so how much core have you logged?
Meters.
Hmm.
More than 1,000.
Okay, so that gives me a sense you've done some logging. What sort of resources have you logged? In what sort of environments have you logged?
I've only worked in iron ore.
Okay.
And then, just iron ore, but with exploration and production.
Okay, so you've done it at two different phases
Yeah.
of a mine. Okay, you've got iron ore experience and you've done about 1,000 meters. I don't know, is that a lot or not? That's not a lot. Okay, so how many days of logging would that be roughly?
I worked in exploration for 3 months.
Okay.
But most of my career has been in production jobs where we did a lot more RC.
Okay. Perfect. So say all of that. That's what I mean by evidence, because if you say to me, I'm skilled in logging, well, you know, you could have had one day where you were helping to log, or you could have had 3 years. So tell me, and then I can interpret from that, okay, this person is going to need a lot of help and a lot of guidance and direction, or I can pretty much let them go it alone. Okay, that's what I mean.
And then your skills should go hand in hand with your references then also.
Okay, tell me what you mean by that.
Let's say your manager at the time when you worked at, let's say, Scottish Technology, he should be part of your references. Yes, he will.
Did you have a good relationship with that manager?
Still have a good relationship.
Excellent. Put that person down as a reference. Do they know they're going to be a reference on your CV? Okay. Make sure your references know they are being put down on your CV. I'm going to come to you now. And the last thing around references, if you're on LinkedIn and they're on LinkedIn, ask them to write you a testimonial on LinkedIn. Okay? Because that immediately builds social capital. You can't write that testimonial for them, only they can write it. And on your CV, when you say to people, get more information via my LinkedIn profile, they're going to run down that and go, oh, here's a reference that he lists, and that person is willing in public to put in writing that they think this is a good person to work with. That is gold. So if you're going to put a reference down in your CV, do what you can to get them to do a testimonial on LinkedIn for you as well. Okay, you had a question.
How many references should you put on the CV?
Okay, so the question was how many references should you put on a CV? I would say at your level I would aim for 3, and I would suggest that if you've had any work experience, that you have a reference from your work experience. So that could have been an internship, it could have been full-time employment, it could have been anything that's related to having had some work. You should put down a reference from one of your lecturers, supervisors, professors, whoever, because that links into your academic career. And if you don't have work experience, put down a reference from somebody who can speak to the leadership opportunities that you've had, whether they're in your community, whether it's volunteer work that you've done, whether it's student committees, or anything else that you've done. Because then what you're doing is getting a range of different viewpoints on who you are and what you're capable of doing. Okay? You can have 5 references if you want, but I wouldn't go less than 3, and I wouldn't do a whole page of references because that just starts to look a little bit needy. Okay? But definitely make sure, first and foremost, these people know that they're a reference on your CV. If you can, get a testimonial from them on LinkedIn. And then, when you're applying for jobs, send them an email, drop them a note, whatever it is, with a copy of your CV, so that when somebody phones them, they have your CV at hand, they've recently spoken to you, and when the person says, I'm phoning to get a reference on X, Y, and Z, they go, oh yeah, and they immediately can talk. Rather than going, yeah, that name sounds familiar, but I haven't spoken to that person in about 2 or 3 years. You never want to put a reference for somebody you're not actively engaged with. Okay, so change your references over the course of your career as well. And if there's nobody who comes to mind as a reference, make this a year where you focus on building relationships with references. Okay. Okay, finally, I'm going to get to my point on hobbies. If you insist on putting your hobbies on your CV, make sure they're conversation worthy. So don't tell me you like reading. Tell me you like reading the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. And I'll go, oh, that's interesting. I do too. What is it that you like about it? Okay, so he's the Lord of the Rings dude. But find something, an angle that's interesting about your hobbies, or don't talk about your hobbies at all. Okay? Because what comes to mind when you say to me, I like reading, watching movies, and hanging out with my friends, says, oh, this is somebody who doesn't really have any specific interests and they just hang out. Okay? It doesn't create a good impression. But if you tell me there's something very specific that's conversation worthy about the things that you enjoy doing, that's going to open a conversation. Okay. You don't need to write a book in your CV. I don't want to know everything about you. I want to know enough that makes me intrigued and interested in inviting you for an interview. Okay? So it's your job to figure out what are the most important points about me that these people need to know. Okay? Keep updating your CV. Every single time you achieve something, every single time you get involved in a new committee, or you start volunteering in something, or you start an initiative, or you win an award, or whatever it is that you do, update it into your CV. Okay? Re-look at the focus of your CV and decide, is this still relevant? Because things become irrelevant quite quickly. Okay? And then, as I've said a million times, be specific to the requirements of the job. Okay? You cannot have one CV that fits all requirements. So have different versions for different jobs, focusing specifically on what might be relevant there. And then there's all the don'ts. Don't have I love a boy or hot stuff for an email. Still intrigued about yours. You don't need all of your personal information. Nobody cares. They're going to do reference checks anyway, and if they really want to, they're going to do police checks. So they'll find out what they need to know in good time. You don't need to bring it up. No duck face selfies. Why have I said no profile and objectives? Ignore that. Ignore that. You really need to have a profile in your objectives. Make sure you spell checked. Don't do it in random order. Make sure that everything is in reverse chronology. And ignore the rest, because I seem to have confused that list. So I'm going to move on.